Welcome to CX Unplugged. I'm your host, Steven Spears. I'll be your host for all things sales and service, and I'm excited to have our first sales and service themed topic here on CX Unplugged, talking 5-minute research for better sales emails. Now, I'll go into the details of why this is important and relevant, but I'm excited to have Jamie Benziken join us for this episode. Jamie, how's it going?
Stephen, always a pleasure to be speaking with you. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm excited. I'd love if you made a quick introduction, kind of your role, what you're focused on, and then we can dive into this topic because I think it's something that people can get done with this episode and then jump right into their Outlook and get using it.
For sure. So my name is Jamie Benziken. I've just had my 6-year anniversary at SAP. I've done a variety of roles, right? Starting off my career within demand generation in the UK sales team. And now I'm sitting in the global enablement team, kind of working on onboarding and enablement, right?
That's awesome. And that's kind of where we had met too. So that works out perfectly. Well, that was how when I was thinking of who would be a great person to talk through this, the first person that popped to mind was, every time I talked to Jamie, he had an approach that A was interesting, and B, it was useful. So I'm excited to talk through this with you, especially because whether you're prospecting, trying to ignite an old opportunity, networking, whatever it is, businesses still relying on email. It's kind of king at this point. So it's frustrating when you really can't get through the noise of the inbox. So really, we want to talk through how to make your emails more effective with research and relevance here. So I'm curious to kick this off, Jamie, from your perspective.
Yeah.
Can emails be relevant without doing any type of research or planning for this?
Absolutely not. And I think you need to think about every single one of your prospects is precious. And you need to go into your engagement before you even kick off that talk track, right? With that mindset, this is a precious contact or prospect. Do I want to waste it? The answer, of course, is no. And that's where, to repeat your words, Stephen, it's something I say every single day. Research is king. And it truly is, because we need to stand out from the crowd in one way or the other. And personalization, in my opinion, is how we drive success.
That's interesting. And I want to encourage everybody too joining and watching this to chime in the chat your thoughts as we talk through this, because as you mentioned that when I think personalization, when I think research, one, it can be terrifying because you think I don't have 20 minutes to sit down and prepare for every email I'm going to send. I got 30 that need to go out or whatever. So when you talk about research and personalization, how much research do you see it actually needs to be done? What are you talking about there?
Look, even casting my mind back to when I was in the role, kind of my day-to-day job was engaging with prospects, finding prospects to engage with, right? I used to spend 1 to 5 minutes on every single prospect, trying to find what I call that golden nugget. And that can be a variety of things, right? In an ideal world, finding a quote from that individual, repeating that individual's words back to them is best case scenario. You can't find that every time, right? And if you can't, I move on to finding an example from their leadership or their corporate values on their website. And look, we all know YouTube, we all know LinkedIn, and we all know Google. And those are the 3 places we should be hitting every day with every prospect.
That's interesting, because that was going to be my kind of second thought is, all right, I'm not going to find a quote for everybody. Like
You'd be shocked.
Google, I was going to say, maybe I should go Google my name and see if there's anything out there. But I could see how when I get a lot of emails, that's an immediate draw. It's scary a little bit, but it's also, it cuts through everything. When you see someone said, I enjoyed your podcast on this, or I saw this, it's kind of alarming enough to where that opens that door for you.
It is, right. And looking at one of our ex-leaders, one of his phrases was, don't be creepy. And I completely agree with that. But kind of being politely persistent is something I used to say. And if I reached out to you, Stephen, and you're a CMO or a CDO, remember, our prospects are the people who are interviewed, have videos of, are on corporate videos on YouTube. If you can find something, just saying, Stephen, look, I was reading the interview with you last week in Marketing Week where you stated A, B, and C. I found it really interesting because that opening line is such a nice icebreaker and does make you stand out from the crowd, from the I think there's industry statistics that say the average CMO or VP receives 70 communications every day. So they're so used to clicking that delete button, but just tweaking your approach a little bit is what helps them nudge them to actually respond to you.
Yeah, and you mentioned 1 to 5 minutes of research. So I'm thinking, all
Yeah,
right, so first we
absolutely.
start off with Googling the person, see if they have anything out there from a quote. So what would be the next thing you would? I know you mentioned a few things there. If that comes up with nothing, what's kind of your next go-to if you're going to start looking for something in this research?
Absolutely. So my first thing I would do is literally jump onto Google. Let's use you as an example. Let's put you in the spotlight. I put in
Nice.
Stephen Spears SAP into Google. I'd have a look at the first few, the first 1 or 2 pages. I'd click on news, and then I'd click on videos in Google. If there's absolutely nothing, I then go onto LinkedIn. I'd have a look at your LinkedIn page, because people, especially looking at the pandemic, right? People have never been so honest. They're writing about their job roles, their targets, their projects, their KPIs, even looking at their previous employment, because it's actually quite nice to reference if their previous employer is an SAP customer experience customer, as an
Mm,
example. Then I go onto YouTube, because YouTube houses a huge amount of data, of videos dating back many, many years. We forget how big the resource of YouTube is. If you fall flat on all of those areas, right, I then go onto the corporate website and I start looking at the corporate values and trying to find something that's aligned with our day-to-day world. And they're normally quotes from their leadership, their C-levels, talking about CX, customer experience, customer service, digital transformation, all of these points. And going back to what I said originally, repeating those words back to your prospects.
Yeah, I think that's a tough point too. Is you go through all of that and think you've got a good idea, and then
Yeah.
you try to paraphrase back. Should you even try to be cute about that? Just go word for word.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep it short and sweet, right? You don't need to kind of copy and paste a paragraph, but just a sentence within that paragraph that resonates with what we do in our day-to-day world. And again, it's their words. They can't deny it. They can't push back on it, because they know they had that interview. I've even remember an example where I was trying to reach out to a chief marketing officer at the Royal Mail in the UK, which is equivalent to your USPS, and I couldn't
Mhm.
find anything. So what I did was found out that he's super active on LinkedIn and commenting on random posts. And I simply mentioned that I'm a fan of his strong point of view on LinkedIn, and copied and pasted his comment, and that grabbed his attention.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And I think that's a really good piece of, okay, you go through the steps of
Mm,
finding that research. But where I think a lot of folks wouldn't deny, um, the fact of course I look and I research. The question then becomes, all right, now how do I take that and actually relate it to what we do, or make sure that something's like that is relevant? So how do you start to, other than, I know you mentioned just copy paste their quote into their your note or your message, how do you also, what are ways that you make sure that you're relating that research into your message?
So a good example of that, right, is an email I sent out to a chief marketing officer at the UK's largest utilities company. The sales organisation genuinely struggled to kind of grab her attention. They were a very large strategic customer of SAP's from a back office point of view, but didn't understand our front office story. So they came to me and said, Jamie, look, can we grab her attention? I found on Google an article discussing a project she was owning and running. It was a 12-month campaign on TV adverts and in print. I said, look, I found this article really interesting about the project you're running. And what I really found interesting was one of the comments you made. And I just literally copied and pasted that short quote, which in this example was drive a more emotional connection and engagement with customers. As we know, that's what we want to help our customers achieve at CX. I really stepped back from talking product, because my goal in the first engagement is sell time to get her to commit to have a further conversation with me tomorrow or next
Mhm.
week, where we can dig a bit deeper and she's more open to have a broader conversation where we can have a bit of questions and answers back and forth.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, especially as you're kind of talking through it. I'm also curious to get your thoughts on, a lot of times this is a very C-level approach. If you're reaching out to a
It
fellow
is,
executive,
yeah.
the quotes and all. If you're looking at more of somebody that's more of a key influencer, more middle management where they're very focused on the ins and outs of the products. How do you tailor this to a little bit more of a different conversation, or do you, I guess?
I do, right? I mean, customer stories. I think we should all learn one, two, three, four, five of our customer stories aligned to the industry that we're engaging with. So we can really drop those points in, learn those high level numbers, those high level ROI stats with an industry flavor, because don't want to push product. We want to push industry knowledge around how to drive value with this individual prospect, right? And really knowing just one or two of our customer stories back to front and relaying that back in a short, easy way that someone can literally read on their iPhone, right? I think we've moved way past the days of writing essays to prospects because that delete button is getting pushed pretty quickly.
That's fascinating. So I'm going to recap here to make sure I'm gathering this
For
right.
sure.
It's kind of a step process. So we're starting out. You got 1 to 5 minutes of research. We're searching for the person's name, going through the first search results, images, videos, company website, and LinkedIn. If you knock out all those, you should be able to find something in their words, or
you will find something.
You
and
will.
It's frustrating
okay.
it's frustrating when I hear some of our colleagues or demand generation colleagues saying, I can't find anything. And I'm like, look what I found. And I mean, it's just spending that time and not just going to Google or not just going to LinkedIn. Kind of spend those few minutes looking at all of those areas. There are corporate values. There are C-levels in our prospects accounts talking about things around CX regularly. These are the faces of the organization, right? They're interviewed regularly. And you will find a lot of your prospects are interviewed regularly as well. Plus, people are super honest on LinkedIn. Let's not forget that.
I was going to say, now, thanks to this, you're going to end up with, hey, Jamie, I was watching the live stream where you said
right?
specifically to personalize your email. So I'd love to grab time with you next week. You just open yourself up to that.
That's what I do, right? It's part of my onboarding and it's part of my enablement to kind of talk people through that process. And I think we forget about it because it is part of our sales 101 training. But I think we get stuck in the daily duties of kind of closing deals and trying to just hammer through as many prospects as possible that we forget how precious each individual prospect is. Let's not waste them.
Yeah.
They're used to saying no, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
It is. My comparison is that you're walking down the street, Stephen, and how many flyers or people on the corner of the street are pushing things in your face, and you don't even know what they're talking about. And you're like, no, I'm okay, thank you. No, I'm okay, thank you. And I think our prospects are in that mindset as well.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that opens up to, I feel like we could do a whole nother episode on also when you're going through this researching process, making sure you are also very clear on who is this relevant for, or
absolutely
is this research and reaching out to this person what this is going to lead to? Can I actually prove that this is valuable? Because outside of that, it's really just spamming. And
it is, right? And that's why I say selling time is so important, because I appreciate we're sometimes reaching out to a prospect and it's cold. We may not have any relationship. We can't lean on our brand. And getting the prospect to commit to time is literally one of the biggest hurdles, because then you put them in a mindset to accept a meeting. It's in their calendar. Yes, they're going to push objections forward to you because they're used to that. But this is a confirmed meeting in the diary where they're in a much more comfortable mindset to have a broader conversation with you.
Yeah. No, and I think you brought up a good point too of looking at the company taglines, things like that. Do you ever take a look in that quick research around like the 401, the annual reports, things like that? Is that something you look at too?
Absolutely, because they always talk about what they're innovating to do next, future projects, future innovations, what they're focusing on for next year, especially this time of year. And right now, you'll find so much information about what they're trying to drive through Black Friday, Christmas, and then rolling into 2022. And again, you just sounding educated, you come across confident and comfortable in the way you're engaging with your prospects.
Yeah. Well, and I think most importantly too, you mentioned it's proof points. I mean, because we're all
the
flyers. I'm going to look at a flyer if in the very immediate future you have a proof point that's like, yeah, you should care about this. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up to the show.
And I think timing's also interesting, right? I used to find a lot of my very senior C-level prospects used to reply to me at between 9 p.m. and midnight. And I used to kind of pick out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those prospects that I really wanted to get through to, and send them a very short personalized message later in the evening when they're in a bit more of a comfortable mind. They're looking and planning the next day, they're clearing their inbox, and my response rate absolutely shot up. And I've seen it with our colleagues as well.
Yeah. No, and I do want to make, as we start to kind of wrap it up here, it is a caveat of a guaranteed yes is not, or a yes or a reply is not guaranteed ever. It's just a matter of
No,
having more of a mindset of, am I doing the right research to make this worth this person's time?
it is. And I think about subject line is you want them to open the email. Body of the email is where it grabs their attention and nudges them to respond to you. And then you're going to close them for that future conversation, right?
Yeah. No, that's perfect.
Don't take any of those points for granted.
I was going to say that you get through the research, you've done it all, and then you copy paste, just a value statement from somewhere off your own website, and then that wasn't worth the work, right?
And don't forget the power of a nudge, just to end on quickly, right? I used to always, and a lot of our teams do, is send that nudge email 7 days later, one sentence. Hey, Stephen, I appreciate you're super busy right now. Have you had a chance to look at my below note? And those little nudge emails really drive the response of you coming back saying, Jamie, sorry, I did miss your email. And it begins that talk track. It's the beginning of that engagement, right?
Yeah. No, this has been super helpful, Jamie. I feel like I'm better equipped now, half at least to do valuable searches on the internet at the very least. And then of course, turn that into emails that are actually going to get to the folks that I'm trying to reach out to. So I appreciate you taking the time as the dog drinks water in the background, if you can hear that as well. So I appreciate you making the time to join here. And for everybody watching and listening, a bonus tip too. Even when an opportunity has been qualified and you've cut through the noise, it's easy for it to go in the junk mail down the road. So creating a focused, structured sales process can help improve that. We're going to throw a link to a really great article from thefutureofcommerce.com on how guided selling could be the help to take that next step once you've cut through the noise, got to the prospect, but now we're getting down the process. So we'll throw that link in the chat there. Also, we'd love to have you as a guest on the show. I can't reiterate that enough. All you have to do is email us at cxunplugged@sap.com. Let us know what your idea for the episode is, why you'd be a great guest, and we'd be happy to feature you on a future episode. Jamie, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for joining.